had Corey Burton on the podcast. I was like, I don't know if I can do any voices right now.
Yeah, well, it's a discretionary thing. I'm not going to conduct the whole panel in Mickey's voice because, one, I'm already losing my voice, and that would be a surefire way for me to lose it completely. And two, Disney might not be too happy with that, so.
But we are, right? All right, Bret. Where do we start? You tell me.
Oh gosh. You're asking the person that's like sleep deprived and...
So you've been voicing him since 2009?
Since 2009, yeah. So I'm going on, it was June of 2009, so I guess it's a little over 12 years now. What month is it? September, right? Yeah. So
speaking of, get a birthday.
I did, just last Friday. It feels like it was 3 months ago, but it was last Friday.
39.
39, I'm in my last year of my 30s. So sad.
Are you one of those people who dreads turning 40?
No, actually, 40 for whatever reason doesn't seem, I actually have a problem with odd numbered years. So 39 is kind of like, meh. 40, I'm like, well, that seems comfortable, like it's nice and round. I think I'll be okay with that. Yeah, so I don't know. I'm inconsistent with my feelings towards birthdays, but as I said on this birthday, it's like, and this is cheesy, but I went to blow out some candles and make a wish, and I legitimately did not know what to wish for because my life is just perfect right now. I feel I'm very blessed. I've had a lot of great things happen in my life, especially over the past 2 years. And so I just, birthdays are a great time to reflect, and I just found myself reflecting, thinking, wow, I am such a lucky guy.
Yeah,
So 39 is a good year, and I'm sure hoping 40 will be even better.
Well, happy birthday, buddy.
Thank you.
And I see we have a microphone down the middle, so at some point I'm going to ask for some fan questions. So start thinking about that. I guess if you guys want to start lining up throughout the panel, I can call on you guys. I'm kind of hoping to get some questions.
maybe if we talk about stuff, they'll be inspired to ask
Probably.
more in-depth questions.
So let's kind of start off with the beginning.
Sure.
How did you become the official voice of Mickey Mouse?
Well, it's not your typical story for voice actors or anyone in Hollywood, actually. I was an artist. I went to school for art. I grew up dreaming of being a Disney animator. I learned to draw by drawing Mickey Mouse. I watched all the classic cartoons, and my dad and I would pause the VHS tapes, the videos, and we'd draw the characters. And so at a very early age, I was fascinated with Walt Disney. His story of where he came from and how he built everything he did, and Mickey kind of came along with that. Mickey really represents Walt, and I think at a very young age I realized that, and so Mickey was always my number one. I was always a huge Mickey fan. And so I was inspired by Walt's story, and I wanted to be a part of that, creative environment. I wanted to be an artist, and so I very early on set my sights on professional illustrator / animator route, and I went to art school because they had an internship with Disney. Actually, when I was I always forget how old I was. I think I was 7 or 8. I grew up just a few miles down the road from the Walt Disney Studios, and one of my favorite things to do was just drive past the Disney Studios, because I was that kid that grew up watching vintage Disney, like the Disneyland television show, or any of the Mickey Mouse Club and Spin and Marty, and sometimes you get a glimpse inside Walt's studio, and so for me, just driving around the perimeter of it was exciting, and I would ask my mom, like, can we just drive around the studio? And of course, a mom of 4 boys, so the last thing she wanted to do was get in the car and just drive around a place, but occasionally she would humor me, and on one of those trips she said, you know what, why don't you write a letter to the studio and see if they'll, hire you to serve coffee to the animators or sharpen their pencils. And I just thought, first of all, as a side note, I have very supportive parents, and I've always attributed so much of where I've gotten in life to having parents who believed in me at a very early age and encouraged things like that. They didn't shoot me down and say, that's ridiculous, you should focus on this. My mom was always somebody who was like, yeah, why not, try it. And it served me well to this day. But that night I got home and I pulled out the typewriter, because this was in the 80s, and I typed up my letter and mailed it in, and months went by, and eventually I got this very thick envelope in the mail, and it was sent from the Walt Disney Studios in Florida, which kind of threw me off because I had mailed the studios in Burbank, California, but nonetheless opened it up, and somebody at the studios had taken the time to respond to little 8-year-old me and wrote me this very detailed letter that was like, you know, encouraging me how exciting it was that I wanted to do this, and here are the steps you should take, here are the books you should read, draw every day, here's an example of a portfolio from a Disney animator, here are the schools you should consider going to. And honestly, that was my blueprint for my career. I picked one of those schools, I set my sights on that, and I went to school in Florida, in Sarasota, a school called Ringling College of Art and Design. Yeah, and so I pursued that art thing full speed ahead. And then as one does, you go to college and you learn a little bit more about the field you're interested in, and I was still interested in animation, but computer animation was really the thing back then. It was really revving up, and I was more interested in traditional animation, so I started thinking about theme park design, and a long story longer, I ended up getting a job with Hallmark greeting cards. So I was a professional illustrator at Hallmark for 5 years. And at around my 5th year mark, actually like a month before I celebrated my anniversary, my friend I went to school with, who is still a Pixar animator, sent me an email. And the email outlined the audition process that was taking place to find an understudy for the voice of Mickey Mouse. So at the time, Wayne Allwine was the voice. He'd been doing it for 32 years. He's the Mickey I grew up on. I'm sure so many of you did as well. He was having some difficulties due to his health, which were preventing him from performing Mickey as often as they needed him to. So they said, well, let's look for an understudy. And just because, you know, the story of Mickey, coincidentally, the voices had all come up from the studio. So you got Walt Disney being the creator and the first voice of Mickey. Then you have Jimmy McDonald, who was a sound effects guru on the studio lot. He was the second voice of Mickey. And then Wayne Allwine, the third voice, actually worked with Jimmy in the sound effects department. He was his apprentice. So, nice little tradition of finding someone within the studio. They send out this email. The subject line is, do you want to be the voice of Mickey Mouse? They outline the process. My friend gets it. She goes, you know what? Brett's a huge Disney fan, specifically Mickey. And she knew I did Mickey's voice because we went to school 2 hours away from Disney World. Annual pass holders, we go up all the time, and you know, what do? The first thing you walk through the gates, you go, oh boy! So my friends all knew I did Mickey's voice. I knew I could say oh boy, but that's about the extent of what I knew I could do. Anyway, you get an opportunity like that, and you just kind of go for it. I thought, why not? I had no aspirations of being a voice actor. I truly didn't know anything about the industry, but I knew Mickey, and I knew Disney, and I knew the legacy, and I thought, even if I have the chance to say I auditioned to be a part of it, it would be a cool story. So that is how I got it. It was, you know, an audition process after that unfolded, and months went by. Eventually, they said, "You're the guy."
You mentioned Wayne Allwine, who was before you. You were supposed to be his understudy, but you never really had a chance to meet him, did you?
No, I didn't, because during that audition process, so at one point I was called into the studio, and I was one of 10 people they had selected to do what they call in-studio auditions. So we literally were in the studio. I was told that day that Wayne had gone into the hospital. I didn't know what that meant, but you know, not necessarily a good thing. So as the process unfolded, before they had made their final choice, Wayne actually passed away. So it was no longer an understudy position. It was they needed to find somebody who could kind of jump into the role right away. So, you know, the added pressure to not only the actors who are auditioning, but also to the staff of Disney character voices, because they really had to make sure they chose wisely, because there was a limited learning curve there. And so, yeah, it was a little disappointing, you know, selfishly on my part, because I really did, I was looking forward to, I knew who Wayne was. I wanted to learn from the guy who had held that torch for so long.
So like you said, we grew up, we're almost the same age.
Yeah.
We grew up on Wayne's voice,
Exactly.
Mickey Mouse.
Yeah, I mean, Mickey Mouse Christmas Carol was this thing I looked for. Before you could just access it anytime you want, thanks to streaming, you know, it would come on ABC around Christmas time. I waited for that day, because I loved that. Yeah, and then all the other cartoons, House of Mouse and whatnot that we listened to. And so yeah, that was a big deal that I didn't get to meet him. But I always say, you know, I was very fortunate to have met Rusi, Wayne's wife, who...
Did you guys know that Wayne Allman, the voice, he's actually married to Minnie Mouse in real life?
So Wayne and Russi were married, and they were, you know, I can speak to Russi. She was Minnie Mouse.
Yeah.
She was through and through, and everything I've heard about Wayne is that together they were Mickey and Minnie. And so I'm thankful that I got to know Russi as well as I did, and work with her as long as I did, because I really got to know Wayne through her.
Yeah, which I did too. Actually, spent 2 hours with her.
Oh my gosh!
I think it was maybe 3 years ago, so a little bit before she passed away.
Yeah, that's
and she
fantastic.
kissed me on my cheek that night, and I always remember that.
Oh yes, Russi was a hugger and a kisser, and Russi gave the best hugs, and I'll try not to get choked up thinking about it, but she was that type of hugger that would give you a hug, and it just never ended. She embraced you so tightly, and you felt all the love that she was trying to give you in that moment. And you know, it's like the reason you say that, you know, she was Minnie Mouse is because she was everything that character embodied, and when you met her, she was everything you wanted her to be as the voice of Minnie Mouse.
Yeah, completely agree with that. Yeah, and I see we have a first fan question right there.
Birdie Hurgan?
I knew it was the Irish.
I kind of suffer from schizophrenia, just like Jim Cummings. My name is Joel.
Hi, Joel.
My question is this, as a voice actor. In addition to acting and singing, what would you say is the third element to make you a triple threat in voice acting? Would it be like versatility, adaptability, endurance, improv, or what?
That is a good question, and I'll try to just pick, you know, the one thing. I think, I don't know what the right word is for it, but the ability to, I mean, you mentioned adaptability, and I think that's part of it, but within being adaptable, it's really being able to be a team player, be open to criticism, be open to direction, and, you know, because that is, you know, it's not just me. I don't just get the ability to go into the booth and do whatever I want. I have writers behind me, I have a vocal director, I have a director of the television show or stage show. So there's several, it's a real true team effort. And I'm going in there and I'm lending one thing, or maybe a few. I'm lending my knowledge of Mickey, my ability to sound like Mickey, but I'm also working as part of the team. So it's a real back and forth relationship in those sessions. And I think you really, truly do need to have the ability to, you know, be open to, not necessarily always criticism, but, you know, there is some criticism. There's also, you know, you need to be fluid in the direction that comes your way, so.
Another question?
Multi-personality there. Yes, I relate.
I was just wondering, what's your hobby right now outside of work?
What's my hobby?
Yeah, what's your thing?
Oh, I love that question. Thank you, because I'm a firm believer in having hobbies, having interests, having things that go beyond, you know, so many of us get identified by our career. It's like the first question you ask, hey, what do you do? And that's your big label you wear. I am slightly schizophrenic in my pursuit of interests. I have several. My biggest hobby right now are steam trains, locomotives. I actually just, I'm building a steam train from the wheels up.
Are you trying to copy Walt?
You know what, that's a compliment, I will say. By no means am trying to copy Walt. I actually didn't know Walt was into trains until a little bit later on in life. I grew up loving trains. My dad's a big model railroader. All our family vacations centered around trains. From a very young age, I was like, I want to have a train someday. So then when I learned that Walt had a train in his backyard, I remember that being like a mind-blowing experience. I was like, Dad, how did you never tell me Walt had a train in his backyard? He was like, oh yeah, Walt had a train in his backyard. Thanks, Dad. And then I went on to find out that, you know, other Disney animators like Ward Kimball and Ollie Johnston were also train fans, and so I love that. Yeah, steam trains are my hobby. I actually took a job a couple years ago at a Southern California theme park called Knott's Berry Farm, just so that I could learn and operate steam trains, and I did that for 2 years. And oftentimes people would be like, why are you here? And I'm like, because it's fun. I would get up at 3:45 in the morning to be down for a 5 a.m. shift, and there's nothing like working with, I love heavy machinery, and especially anything vintage. So by extension, my other hobbies are restoration. I love restoring old things. I just restored a 1900 chuck wagon that I'm building, or repairing, and yeah, I love anything vintage and tinkering and stuff like that. But trains are my real hobby. Yeah.
Another question?
Hey, bud.
Hi, one of the things that I wanted to do is I can do Mickey's voice.
You can? Will you do it for me?
Oh, what a
Oh my gosh, pal, it's nice to meet a fellow Mickey.
I can also do Goopies.
Okay, well, here we go. It's a voiceover challenge.
Oh, gosh, I've been looking for you all day. You left the stove on, buddy.
Can you do Donald? You're just multi-talented. We'll be coming to your panel next year.
And now it's time for my question.
Okay.
So what was the first movie you did, and how old were you?
Sorry, say the first part of that again. It's hard to hear.
What was your first movie?
Oh, my first movie? Well, I mean, I have done several, like, 2-hour specials, like, I guess you can call them movies. I don't remember necessarily what the first one was. I have a really bad memory. The blessing of this role is that you get to work on so many different things that after a while they all blur together. But let me see, I'm trying to think now. What would have been the first movie I did? You know, there's been a lot of, I was on season 3 and 4 of Mickey Mouse Clubhouse, and I know we did some 2-hour specials then. I can tell you that there's some upcoming movies centered around holidays that are coming out as part of the Mickey Mouse Mixed Up Adventures world. We did a Halloween one that I think is coming out soon, and then that's going to be shortly followed by a Christmas one. I know there's other holiday ones, I can't remember what they are, but look for those. But all of them are my favorite, and I'm not lying when I say that. They're all unique and different and equally as exciting.
Okay.
You like that answer?
Yes.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. The new Mickey Mouse one day, folks.
Yes, yeah, Mickey number 4, 5.
Yeah.
Just like, I don't know.
Now, there was a question that I asked you on my podcast a couple years ago. You just mentioned it kind of meshing together because you've done it so many times. Have you had a dream about Mickey at all? Since you're around Mickey Mouse,
Yeah, ask me that.
Yeah.
I have never dreamt in Mickey's voice. I have never dreamt. You know, I think like the closest thing that, so my very first job was working at McDonald's. And I would have nightmares about McDonald's all the time. Like the drive-thru was backed up, or the fry machine overflowed, or, you know, like the saucer machine was spilling out.
Broken as always.
God, like I would have terrible nightmares. You just wake up so stressed, or a big thing is like, I'm late for my job. I think I've had one dream where, oh, actually, I remember now.
Okay.
Most recently, I did have a dream. It wasn't in Mickey's voice or really anything about it. It was just that I was trying to do, in this Zoom era, I was trying to do a recording session through my phone. Like the only thing I had was my phone, and my director's like, okay, I need you to say this line, and I would like talk like Mickey, and she's like, I didn't hear it. I'm like, I did it. She's like, I couldn't hear you. And so the whole dream was just me trying to be like, no, I'm trying to record. Probably because I've been traveling a lot and I'm stressed out about not being available to go into the studio as often as needed. So, stress dreams.
That's a boring dream.
It's a very boring dream. I didn't promise it to be exciting. Most of my dreams are boring. My life's the exciting thing.
Another question?
Yes, hi. So, one question that came to mind was specifically about Kingdom Hearts.
Okay.
So, I noticed the feeling of Kingdom Hearts is quite a bit different than something like Mickey Mouse Clubhouse.
Absolutely.
So, I'm wondering, how do you approach the same character from such like a vastly different emotional tone?
That's a great question. I think, you know, Mickey is an actor, and so how I approach it is, you know, there's a core Mickey that kind of is always my go-to base. But then within each of those properties or TV shows or video games, Mickey sometimes gets stretched a little bit here or there. And so Kingdom Hearts is a great example of that, where, you know, if I can say, there's little ears in the room, but he's a badass in Kingdom Hearts. So it's just like stretching. You know, you really just get into it and it's like, okay, I know who Mickey is, but in this game or this series, you know, he's playing King Mickey. He's a warrior, he's a fighter, he's got a job to do. He's a little mysterious sometimes too. And so you just approach it in that sense. It's like it's acting again at the end of the day, where you just kind of put yourself in a different mindset. Like, you know, Mickey's not looking for shapes, he's there to like kick some butt. So yeah, it's fun. It's fun in those opportunities to stretch. And yeah, each project delivers a little bit of a different realm from the plan.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Another question?
Probably for most of us in this room, Mickey has been a comfort character, like you had mentioned for yourself. And for me, for example, Sorcerer Mickey is my favorite.
Awesome.
So my first question is, who's your favorite Mickey? But besides that, does the pressure of being the most iconic voice in the world ever feel really heavy?
Not at all. I've actually never, I mean, people always ask me what it feels like to be Mickey, but I've never had the question directed so poignantly before. I mean, the thing is, being as big of a fan as I am, and was before stepping into this role, you know, I've always just felt very humbled and honored. And I think those emotions are what kind of rises to the top most of the time. It's like, I feel so lucky every time I get the call or the email to like come in. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's amazing. But the thing that I don't often talk about is there is a lot of pressure and a lot of stress. And a lot of times it's self-imposed, but you know, I don't want to ever, you know, lose the opportunity to continue being Mickey's voice, and so that means like I gotta be, there's a pressure I put on myself to be top notch when it just comes to vocal qualities. You know, and Mickey is, I'm lucky that it's a falsetto voice that comes naturally to me. But like anyone, when you talk too much or you perform a trick voice like that too often, it wears on you. And so, you know, like I do find myself oftentimes when you guys will come up to the table and I know everyone wants to hear Mickey and probably would love to talk to Mickey the whole time. It's really hard for me to talk to Mickey or talk as Mickey for that long. So I do find myself having to be a little selective and choosy with how I use it. And I know sometimes it doesn't come across the best way. It's like, why won't he do it? Just talk like Mickey. But it really is, it's about, you know, first respecting the character and just trying to I was at a Comic-Con in Lexington last weekend. I was there for 3 days, but I had to ditch out early on the third day because I woke up and my voice wasn't there, and I had to record Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday this week, some stuff for the 50th of Walt Disney World and some TV show episodes, and you know, it's like I have to prioritize that. So yeah, it does get a little, you know, it's like, it is, mostly it's all fun, right? It's all fun and games, but then there is that added pressure of, I gotta be top notch if I'm gonna be able to do this and give Mickey what he deserves, and then in turn, give the fans what they deserve and what they expect to hear from Mickey. So, yeah, I mean, by no means am I like sacrificing myself. Like my life, I'm very honored and I have a lot of fun, but there is some pressure, yeah. I mean, it's Mickey Mouse, so this Walt Disney's character. You don't wanna mess that up.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the question. I hope that wasn't too doom and gloom. That makes everything better.
I was just wondering, do you have more fun voicing Mickey Mouse for the cartoons or the video games, or do you love them both equally?
I truly do love all the projects equally. They give the opportunity for something different. Video games I've always thought is so much fun because, you know, cartoons occasionally you fall or you do some like effort noises, but video games is like half the session usually is like, okay, now you're punching. And so you just do several punches. Okay, now you're falling. You're falling from 10 feet. Now you're falling from 50 feet. Now you're hitting the ground. So like that's different. My favorite thing to do, though, between TV shows, video games, or any of the projects I do is the theme parks, because I love Disney parks. I was that kid that like Disneyland was literally my happy place. I lived for going there. And so there's nothing like being in a Disney park and seeing Mickey and the characters in a show, and then like having them come to life with the voice. So I'm like that little kid who gets goosebumps when I see them on stage doing that. So anytime we get to do a park show, I'm like, yay!
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Another question?
Switching gears a little bit, we're big fans of Justin's card, and we were wondering how you knew him.
Is this his panel? No, I love Justin.
Justin, are you good?
Justin was actually supposed to get married in my backyard in a couple weeks here, but he's been having some scheduling conflicts, so they're postponing. But he will be getting married in my backyard. I met Justin. Funny enough, I just mentioned Knott's Berry Farm. So I was at a Comic-Con in Palm Springs, of all places. It was a very ill-attended Comic-Con. And with Bill Farmer, voice of Goofy, and we were sitting there, and I saw Justin, and I knew who Justin was because I was working at Knott's Berry Farm at the time, and the very next day, we were scheduled to have this YouTuber come and do a whole profile on the railroad. So they asked me to be a part of that. That YouTuber was Justin, so that's how I knew him. And I saw him, I was like, that's the guy that's coming to Knott's Berry Farm tomorrow. So the whole time I'm trying to like get his attention, but the Comic-Con was so dead, nobody was at our tables, so he felt really uncomfortable approaching us, and so we avoided this the whole time. So the day finally comes, it's 5 a.m. at Knott's Berry Farm, I walk around the locomotive, and I'm like, hey Justin, I'm Bret. He goes, I know you from someplace. I was like, Palm Springs Comic-Con. He's like, oh my God, why wasn't anyone at your table? I'm like, well, that's an issue to take up with the con promoters. But anyway, so I met Justin. He did a profile on the Knott's Berry Farm Railway. So if you are familiar with his, and you saw when he was driving the trains at Knott's Berry Farm, I was the fireman on the other side that was covering his ears because he blew the whistle way too loud. And I was deaf by the
To know. And she is a big fan. She always asks for Mickey Mouse.
Aww.
Well, hi, pal.
Yeah, Justin, he's a YouTuber, by the way, Justin's card. I was in one of his videos about him.
Oh, really?
I think was it Periscope what he used to go on?
Oh, yes. I think
And
that's
so I can't find the video because I think Periscope takes him away. Yeah,
well, maybe
we're at Disneyland hanging out.
he has his archives, I'm sure.
Yeah. Another question?
Hiya, Bret.
Hi.
Oh, yeah.
Disney Donna.
I know. I think it's swell. So, Bret, I wanted to ask you something. So, back in Disneyland, they did a presentation called Mickey and the Magical Map. Were you a part of that?
I was a part of Mickey and the Magical Map, yes.
Oh, gee.
Yes, I was a map maker.
Oh, that was so awesome.
Yeah, that was a fun project. Yeah.
Oh, my fur. And by the way, did you work alongside with Frank Welker and Epic Mickey too?
I did. We never worked side by side, but we were on the game together as he was the voice of Oswald, so that was a tremendous honor. I've done a few things with Frank, but he is, crazy talented. So.
Oh, that we know that for sure.
Yes.
Thanks a lot, Bret. You're a great pal.
Thanks for the question.
Another question?
What's been your favorite experience other than coming to FanX because of Mickey, like either recording or from a fan?
I'm the worst when it comes to favorites. People ask me all the time, what's your favorite music? I'm like, I don't know. And again, it's like, I'm so lucky that I've had so many different experiences with Mickey. I was in a situation where I got to meet the first family at one time, which was just crazy that I would get to do that. I've been a part of the opening of Alani in Hawaii and the rededication of Disney's California Adventure, which were two cool, epic experiences. But I have two memories which are probably the most impactful for me. And one was, I was a part of a project where Mickey got to talk to guests on live interactions. And it was a program called Mickey's Magic Words, or Magic Words with Mickey, I forget. Don't quote me on that. It was in Florida, and we did a lot of work on it leading up to its implementation in the parks. And so I was working very closely with Mickey in those situations and got to be one-on-one with guests as they met him. So Mickey got to say people's names, he got to talk about their pets, and I already knew how much Mickey meant to people. And as somebody so eloquently put it earlier, he's a comfort character. But in those interactions, I really was able to experience firsthand people's personal stories with the character. And whether you're 2 years old or you're 52 years old, you know, Mickey is Mickey, and it was so amazing to see these adults approach Mickey and just melt into kids again, and tell him everything from their highs and their lows. And I really remember feeling a great sense of responsibility at that point, because it wasn't just me having fun talking like Mickey, which I think sometimes is a common misconception when it comes to voice actors behind characters like this. It's really not just about making a funny voice, it's about personifying the character, knowing how the character thinks, how he feels, what he would and wouldn't say. And so I had some really intimate moments with people where they shared, like, you know, very heavy things and also very lighthearted things. But that stuck with me because that was a real example of just how powerful a character Mickey is and what his legacy means. The other one, and I've probably overshared this story, but when Fantasmic got redone in Disneyland not too long ago, you know, I recorded Mickey for that show, which I was a little hesitant about because I loved Wayne's performance in it, and I grew up actually listening to Fantasmic is how I developed the ability to do Mickey's voice. So when I got to do that, it was surreal. But when I got to see it for the first time with my brother standing next to me, who used to put on Fantasmic shows in our backyard with me, we'd spray the hose and shoot off bottle rockets. He put his arm around me and he said, "Did you ever think that when we were kids doing this, that we'd be standing here listening to you over the loudspeakers?" And I'd be lying if I said I didn't bawl my eyes out like a baby. It was a total ugly cry moment. But that's stuck with me because it's those moments, you know, I love Mickey and I love this job, but if there's one thing that I can be known for at the end of my career, it's just encouraging people to follow their passions and to seek out those moments that give you the goosebumps, those full circle moments where you wanted something and you worked towards it and it came to fruition. Like, those are the moments that fuel me in my life. So moments like that in Fantasmic where I go, gosh, that little boy dreaming of being creative and being a part of the magic is here in this moment now, like, that's crazy. And so, yeah, that sticks with me because I think that's where my true passion lies, is just kind of seeing those full circle moments come full circle.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
So Bret, being a fan of the Disney parks, what was it like being able to have the opportunity to design your own Mickey ears?
Oh, good question. By the way, they look great on your head because we have the same hairstyle.
It would be
yeah, thanks, Tim.
What's with this tag, by the way?
That is the longest tag ever. It's because I wanted to make up for not having hair, so it's like a ponytail.
That makes sense. That makes sense.
Actually, you're supposed to cut it out.
Okay, well, I felt bad doing that.
No, rip it out.
I thought it was illegal to
Rip it out. I don't think it's like a mattress. Once you're the owner, you can rip the tag off. It's a really long tag. I did the photo shoot for the collection. They had me come down to Disneyland and like model it, and I put that hat on. And I was like, "Who designed this thing? Why does it have a tag?"
You did design. That as well.
Yeah, this is part of it. Sorry, we're going away from your question now, but I've had the chance, the opportunity to design several things for Disney now, whether it's stuff for D23 and their like merchandise, or like you asked, the ear hat, and that was so cool. You know, it's funny, people kind of think that because of the voice of Mickey Mouse, that all these opportunities just like get thrown at me, and this is not me trying to brag, but that really came about because I was at an event where they were announcing the ear hats, and I was in the green room with the head designer, I guess the head of the program, talking about all these designers who were going to be designing ears, and I just kind of leaned over, I was like, "Hey, you know, I'm the voice of Mickey, and I'm also an artist, and it'd be so cool to design Mickey ears." And she was like, "Can you do that? Are you allowed?" I was like, "Why wouldn't I be allowed?" So anyway, you know, conversations continued, and I was given the opportunity, and it was so cool because I thought, like, I'm just that fan that goes through Disney parks all the time and looks at the merchandise, and I'm like, I wish it looked like this. And so when you have that moment to do it, it's so cool. But the funny thing is, when you get those chances, and then like it happens, and I'm physically holding a pair of Mickey ears that has literally my autograph is on it, it's designed by, I'm like, this doesn't feel real. Like, that's not real. And I mean, thankfully, I've had a lot of experiences like that. Where it's like, that's not real, whatever. But it is very cool, especially since they got to have sound on them, which I thought was, you know, needed to happen. But yes, to tangent off of that, I was given the chance to design as part of an artist series, this collection called Script, which these are all doodles that are inspired by the doodles I do all over my scripts in the recording session. If I have a pencil in my hand, I'm always drawing Mickey. And then the writing is my handwriting because I will jot down notes and stuff. So there's the hoodie, there's the hat, I'm wearing a t-shirt underneath.
There's a backpack too, right?
Not model, yeah, backpack, and then like a woman's. Ashley has informed me that they're called a meet and greet, which I think sounds weird.
Okay.
I call it a crop top. She says it's not a crop top, it's like a shorter women's tee.
All right.
So, or, I mean, I guess guys can wear it too. It's like a midriff.
Yeah, okay.
Is that a thing?
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Anyway, let's go on to another question so I stop talking.
So you're the fourth official voice of Mickey. Do you feel like all four of you have kept a consistent character, or do you feel like you're four different generations of Mickey?
I think, oh gosh, I feel like someone else should answer that question for me. I'd like to think that we've kept him as consistent as possible. You know, I heard Wayne Allwine say in an interview when he was discussing how he got the role, he said that Jimmy McDonald told him, remember kid, you're only filling in for the boss. And so that's what I've tried to remember all this time. It's, you know, it's really less about Bret Iwan and what he's bringing to the character as much as it is about what Walt brought to the character and making sure that those character traits are the things that continue. And you know, it's difficult because Mickey is a big character with a lot of people behind him. Like I mentioned, the writers, directors, and all that, you know, marketing and tons of stuff around him. So there's a lot of opinions coming in about the character. So I just try to simplify it in terms of my role as the voice of Mickey. It's just, I oftentimes think back to, you know, if I'm faced with something that's like, I don't think Mickey would do that or necessarily say it that way, then what I do is I reference my, you know, library in my head. I go, how would Wayne have said that? Let me think of a thing Wayne did that was similar, or how would Walt have done it? You know, like did Walt ever perform Mickey in this situation, and how did he approach it? So really, it's just like I constantly go back to that. So I hope that in that process, I am keeping it as consistent as possible. You know, obviously everyone's voices are a little bit different, and so there will be changes. I mean, I can listen and hear, hi. No, I know you meant 5 minutes. Sorry, I got distracted. I don't think she liked that joke. Yeah, I can hear the differences in all the Mickeys because it's just different voices. But character consistency in terms of integrity and personality, I hope, are the goals.
There's a question.
I need to talk faster. I talk slow. I talk too much.
My quick question was, I like playing with voices, and so I noticed that sometimes during the day when I do something like accidentally slip into like a British accent for a minute. So do you ever do that with Mickey where you just like drop something?
Oh, I mean, ask my friends that. They're the ones who will tell you. They're always like, that was Mickey. Like, I'll just be laughing, you know, like, oh my God. Like Mickey. Like, no. Or my dogs are the ones who get the brunt of it, because it's just like, you know, and before I got cast as Mickey, I was talking to my dog, and you know, you talk to dogs in a cutesy voice, oh, it's so cute, oh, you're a little cute Lily now, oh, hi, Lily. And I was talking, and I was like, oh gosh, I'm talking like Mickey. That was before I ever got cast, so my dog still, it's like I got a new puppy, and his favorite thing to respond to is me going, ollie, 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 ollie. It's like, that's Mickey. I'm not trying to be Mickey, but my cute voice is Mickey.
That's awesome. Hi, Bret. Just out of curiosity, what's your favorite ride at Disneyland and why? And has it always been your favorite ride?
Has it always been my favorite? Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Okay, so I have, it's like a cheap answer for me. This is so hard. Favorites. My two favorites, and I put them in the same places, Pirates of the Caribbean and Haunted Mansion. That's for my two. I remember talking to you about this. Because to me, they're quintessential Disney storytelling attractions at their finest. They're original until they threw Jack Sparrow in there, which we need that? I don't think so. You know, they're unique. They're unique Disneyland experiences that aren't based on a ride or on a movie or a TV show. And I think, you know, that was what Walt was really going after in those parks. And then if I was to trump those two choices, it would have to be the railroad. Because again, train nerd. So, yeah.
Thank you. So speaking of parks, or anywhere really, do you ever bring the voice out? Like there's a kid there, do you kind of say things Mickey?
Someone
See the reaction?
asked me that at my table earlier today, and I said no. And here's why. In those moments when, well, one, I want to do everything I can to protect Mickey's character, and that's the magic behind him. So, you know, like it takes a little bit away when you see it come out of this bald guy's face. And so I want to keep that magic alive for kids especially, but more often than not, if I do the voice out of the context of a Comic-Con like this, people go, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
Or,
I've heard better.
that guy on the TV show's better. I'm like, thanks, I'll tell him. So I've learned from my own ego to just not really bust it out all that often, because people just don't realize that what I do professionally.
Why are you talking to my kid?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I mean, the last thing I need is to be, you know, labeled as a creeper.
Hi, how are you? No, really, I'm Mickey, it's fine.
And you mentioned your love for Walt, so we will close on this.
Okay.
If you had the chance to talk to Walt, what is one thing you want to talk about?
I'm gonna seem like a broken record. I wouldn't want to talk to him about anything at the studio or anything at Disneyland. I would want to talk to him about his workshop. I want to know what, because you know, somebody asked about hobbies earlier. Walt was a big hobby guy too. That's where his steam trains came from. He built miniatures, and so I want to talk to him about like what's on his workbench, what's he working on. I would just want to sit down, have some chili and beans with him, sit in his backyard, maybe have a little scotch. You like to scotch. And just like hang out. I wouldn't want to talk business. I wouldn't want to talk about, I'd be too intimidated to talk about Mickey. I'd probably keep that a secret from them. Be like, I heard there's this new guy doing my voice. Like, I don't know who that is. So that's what I do. I would want a low-key backyard hangout with Walt Disney.
Well, all right, everybody, please give a round of applause. Thank you, Bret. And he's got a table at